Hello everyone, Brian Johnson with Format Approved here. I'd like to welcome you to this informational session for our partners about the HIPAA Secure Referral Program. As you know, I'm the Senior Director of Education for Format Approved. I'm here with Wendy Whitmore, the CIO for Format Approved.
Yes, I am here and happy to be meeting with the partners today and looking forward to everyone's questions. There has been quite a bit of communication back and forth between the partner liaisons and ourselves about this program, and we're excited to talk a little bit more about it with you today.
And we understand that all of you have talked individually with your liaisons about the program, but you know, there's still questions about it, and we thought it would be useful to go over different aspects of it to make sure that everyone understands. And then the most important thing in all of this is that we want to give you an opportunity to ask questions to clear up any confusion there may be, and to give you strategies about how to best market the program and how to make the most of it. So let's go ahead, and we're going to start with commonly asked questions that we've heard from our partners and move through those, and then we'll give you all an opportunity to ask your own questions.
And I'm just going to pipe up and say my understanding from a couple of the development gurus here that we also have some partners who are interested in the program but have not yet signed up. So we're going to just include a couple of quick slides and pieces of information about the Premium Partner Program itself, but we're not going to linger on those. And if you have any questions about the partnership program, we can plug you into a development guru here on our end as well.
So here you can see the list of questions we're going to address to begin. These are very common questions as well as questions about the program itself. So as I said, we'll move through those quickly, and then we'll leave plenty of time for you to ask your own. So who are ForMed HIPAA Secure partners and resellers? Now all of you are also, those of you who are existing partners are also education partners. So you understand that program, and there's many people who are education partners who are not HIPAA Secure partners. That's people who, it's only HIPAA Secure is only about providing these HIPAA services. But still, many of the people who are education partners are also interested in this program as well. So we have nonprofit organizations that provide services and benefits to the medical community, for instance, such as medical associations. We have product and service providers with healthcare industry clients, HIT and healthcare industry publishers, healthcare educators, HIT recruiters, employers, and hiring managers, and then technology VARs and MSPs with a healthcare division or focus may be the largest segment of our HIPAA Secure referral partners.
Right. You know, largely this program is going to appeal to the VAR community and the managed service provider community and the HIT technical community because it helps them plug a gap. If they are not security specialists or HIPAA specialists, this can help them add that value-added service to their bench, so to speak, with very little effort.
And what we've seen with a lot of folks, probably many of the people who are on this webinar now, is that because of the changes with the Omnibus Final Rule that are they're coming on September 23rd is when you actually have to be compliant, many business associates under the HIPAA terminology have come to understand that they need to be HIPAA compliant themselves, and as they go out and talk to their healthcare clients, they realize that their healthcare clients have HIPAA compliance needs themselves, and sad as it is to say, many healthcare providers have not done very much to become HIPAA compliant. And with the changing regulatory environment and with OCR, that's the Office for Civil Rights, and HHS really stepping up its audit efforts, its breach investigation efforts, this is something that all of us, whether you're a covered entity that's a provider or a business associate, really need to pay attention to. So for those folks, it really provides a value add to the services they're already providing to healthcare providers. And then for our other referral partners, such as educators, this gives them a way of really offering new services out to their members or clients. Now, this is really for folks who may be considering joining the Premium Partnership Program. For those of you who are already members, this should be familiar stuff, so we'll go through it quickly. What are the benefits of becoming a ForMed Premium Partner? And if it's not clear already, you have to be a Premium Partner in order to participate in HIPAA Secure under most circumstances. So there's a number of benefits, and we'd be happy to hook you up with one of our liaisons to discuss these in more detail. but these range from, for instance, you get a premium marketplace listing in the ForMed Marketplace, which is connected to our website. There's more than 80,000 unique visitors to our website every month, and through our partners, potentially an audience of several 100,000 have access to that marketplace. Free ForMed training is included, so you're able to have one free certification and then heavily discounted training for other members of your staff. Priority client referrals. Through the ForMed Pro Network, we have a large number of specialists in there. People come to that network to look for services, and you get first whack at those if you're a premium member at those client referrals. We run boot camps several a year, and you would get discounts on boot camp admissions. That would be for things like HIPAA itself with our HIPAA expert Mike Semmel, also PCI DSS and other subjects. Industry conference promotion. We attend large HIT conferences such as HIMSS, and the next one we've got coming up is MGMA.
MGMA in San Diego, and AHIMA.
We'll also be at AHIMA, that's in Atlanta. Those are both in October, and so we promote our premium partners at those events. Maybe you could talk about the custom web portal with content.
So one piece, and we will address this a little bit later on in the presentation, all of the premium partners who are also resellers in this program do receive a custom web portal, which is basically a microsite of ForMed approved with lots of free content for your clients. All of the information that we post up for free for our site visitors is branded to you, white labeled to you and your business, so that you can provide that same excellent free content on meaningful use and HIPAA and all kinds of interesting topics, including access to our very highly trafficked daily and weekly news columns on HIT and HIPAA. So that is called our Pro Page tool, and again, that is available only to our premium partners. A really excellent tool and a great way to provide additional content on your website about healthcare technology.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more later, but when people understand what they get for that, it's really a remarkable tool for people to soup up their websites. It's really great.
And we're improving it more over the next few weeks. There are going to be some additional features to help you cross-promote your other services and individual courses that you sell and things like that as well.
Of course, one of the benefits is access to reseller programs. That's why we're here today. There's also an e-blast included to the regional medical community. We've become fairly sophisticated, I think it's safe to say, or
Yes.
I'd like to say, in our e-blast efforts.
Yes.
And we have a lot of collateral that we can provide to you to help hone your message and get the most bang for your buck in that promotion.
Absolutely.
How does the program work? Again, these are just the steps that you go through. You become a ForMed Pro Network Premium Partner. You need to, and again, you can call this number, that's Genevieve Daniel, or you can call any of us here at 671-1028, and we'll be happy to guide you through that process. You review and sign the reseller contract. We create the storefronts for you. We work with you to customize those to meet your needs. Anyone who's a HIPAA-secure referral partner is also an education partner necessarily, and so we create two different storefronts because they have different discounting available, and there's different tracking involved. So we set up both of those for you and work with you to make those, get those where you need them to be. As we were mentioning, we activate your Pro Page and launch marketing initiatives. We help you to promote products and services. As I was saying, we provide you with collateral. We give you access to a partner portal that we'll discuss a little bit more. Those of you who are existing partners should already have access to that and understand that there's materials available, which we're constantly expanding. And a new program that we're going to discuss in a little bit more detail is our affiliate portal, which gives you real-time tracking of your sales and a number of other benefits that we'll describe. What are the products included in the ForMed HIPAA-secure program?
This is the meat. From this point forward, we're kind of off the, because most of you are already partners, this will be the part you really want to pay attention to. This is where we're going to talk about the program itself, what it includes. I think there have been some adjustments to it from day one, and so We're pretty solid at this point on the offerings, and we just want to make sure that everybody fully understands what those offerings are and how they work and who's involved. And please feel free at this point to type in questions in the chat box along the way as you think of them, because we will address those questions at the end of the session.
So let's just briefly describe what the products are. Now, if we were talking about the education storefront, it would take us some time to go through all the products. One of the nice things about HIPAASecure is that it's pretty simple. There's 4 products in the HIPAASecure store. There's the HIPAA documentation template bundle, and what this is designed to provide is all of the documentation that a practice would need to be HIPAA compliant. So what's included in the documentation bundle? And I should mention that if you go to the HIPAASecure store, you can, this is a screenshot of that store, you can go in and click on any of these links and get more information, but we'll briefly describe them here as well. The documentation bundle includes business associate agreements, both for business associates and covered entities, but also business associates and their subcontractors. HIPAA requires that now, especially under the Omnibus Final Rule. It includes an updated notice of privacy practices. Any provider has to provide an MPP to any patient, and that MPP needs to be updated in light of the Omnibus Final Rule. And I should mention that when a consumer, when one of your clients purchases this product, what happens is they land in our learning system just as if they were taking an education course, and they can download all of these documents, but also there are modules within that that explain what the documents are, how they've been updated, and why they're important. So there's guidance in there as well. And I mention it now because one of the modules describes in some detail why the MPP needs to be updated. Along with that, there's some rather lengthy HIPAA policies as well as HIPAA procedures. Those are templates you can customize, or that a practice can customize to meet their needs, but it's a great place to start. There's also a network vulnerability self-assessment in there that people can use to analyze their own network or get the ball rolling on that. The sort of the heart of it, and the heart of any HIPAASecure or HIPAA compliance program, is the meaningful use risk analysis. Now, there's sometimes people ask questions about what the risk analysis is. HIPAA requires a risk analysis for anyone who comes into contact with PHI. You've got to start with that because that analyzes your overall compliance environment, and it really is sort of the baseline for everything else. Meaningful use also requires that risk analysis. And in meaningful use, that's called Core Measure 15. It's part of Stage 1. We've heard from our meaningful use experts. We often talk with Jim Tate, for instance, who's sort of one of the major national figures in audit and guiding people through audits. And he says the #1 way that people get audited on meaningful use is that they attest that they have conducted a risk analysis, and they actually haven't done it. So this is a very important measure that anyone who comes into contact with PHI needs to have. Along with that, then there's the third bundle, where the risk analysis itself is not a technical analysis per se. It's really a HIPAA analysis, so it's not a network vulnerability test. So the network security risk analysis is more technical. It looks at what your vulnerabilities are, what you need to do to implement the proper network security to satisfy HIPAA. And then we offer the HIPAA Smart Bundle. The HIPAA Smart Bundle is just a nice package that includes the documentation template, the meaningful use risk analysis, and the network security risk analysis along. Ordinarily, anyone who has HIPAASecure, there will be a link on the bottom that takes you to the HIPAA products in the education store. Those obviously go hand in hand. But here's one place where we have education in the HIPAASecure store itself. And so there's, along with all the other products, there's one CHSP certification. That's to train security compliance officers, medical practice managers, or business associates, along with 3 of the workforce licenses as well. Anyone who comes into contact with PHI is required to have HIPAA training. And so that gets the ball rolling. Typically, folks are going to need more training than that, but that's a nice place to start. I think the best, especially if people are trying to learn about HIPAA, if they're in a practice, the thing they really need to do is someone needs to take that CHSP course right away to understand what it is that the law requires, and that's the best place to start. And here's a point that I think there's been some confusion around. The language in the store talks about this, but we want to really emphasize this here. These products off the shelf are for practices that have 1 to 5 docs at a single location. The idea is that this retail product is designed for small ambulatory practices. We, of course, offer services for anyone, for whatever the size. It could be a large hospital, but because there's a lot more complexity involved, those larger implementations require a custom quote. So as I said, the store talks about this, but we want to make it very clear here that as you're going out and promoting the HIPAA-secure program, this is something you should keep foremost in your mind, that what is the size of the practice? If it's a small doctor's office, then you can just sell it right off the shelf. If it's a larger practice, then there's a questionnaire you need to fill out or have to work with the practice to fill out, and that allows us to produce a custom quote for you where we can say, well, this is what it'll cost to do, a 19 doc practice at 7 locations, whatever it happens to be. So because those larger practices, they don't scale in a linear fashion, there's a lot of complexity there, so we need that custom quote in those circumstances.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is that it's important to note, and I realize that we didn't throw a slide in here about this, but it's important to note, particularly for the managed service provider community and some of the technical support folks on the line here, that this program is not intended to supplant or in any way interfere with your ability to provide what we call remediation services, which means that these risk analysis reports and templates and base level security services are really, quite frankly, a great way for you to then leverage the information in those reports to encourage that practice that you have a relationship with to buy your managed services for ongoing support, or to engage your service company to provide the remediation that is identified in those risk analysis reports. So if somebody finds out from that report that they have an issue with network vulnerability, that's a point at which you get to then quote from your service pool those services to help that particular practice. If you don't happen to, if you're one of our publishing partners or a medical association partner, and you do want us to engage organizations to be able to provide those remediation services, we can do that as well. And again, that kind of falls into that preferred referrals component of the premium partnership. If you are a technical service provider, and if you are a premium partner in the Format Pro network, and if we have a request from one of our publishing partners that happens to support this HIPAA-secure program, they want some remediation help, that's where we're going to go. We're going to go to that list of premium partners in the Format Pro network to find folks that we can refer in specific service areas to provide that remediation service.
That's an important point. I'm glad you mentioned that. So there's revenue opportunities simply through selling these products, but there's also significant additional revenue opportunities by providing that remediation. And if Wendy didn't already mention that at the bottom of your HIPAA secure store is where we provide that information. And then, of course, you're working with clients yourself if you're an MSP, so you'll be walking them through this process anyway. But that's a great opportunity to earn additional revenues. Who are Format HIPAA secure service providers? These are folks who have a lot of industry experience, certifications in security. This program has been developed and is to some extent overseen by Mike Simmel, who's our Format-approved HIPAA in-house expert in a sense. Of course, he has his own consulting business, but we work closely with Mike to deliver these HIPAA services to folks. So it's really the gold standard in HIPAA security. Anyone who is involved in this process is required to have a CHSP certification through our education. PCI DSS is a relatively new addition to the education store, but that's an area where there's also a lot of opportunity for security compliance as well.
Yeah, both of these programs have been, fully reviewed and vetted for college credit by IACET and for continuing education units from various organizations. So, these are solid courses with really excellent information. As a premium partner, you get one free training certification, and if you are going to be a HIPAA secure service provider, we do recommend that you take that Security Compliance Officer course.
You really need to do that.
Yeah, because that really is the one that will help you both understand, what that course includes in order to be able to sell it accurately, but it also gives you a lot of terrific talking points.
Yeah. And, of course, you need to be compliant yourself if you're providing these services. That's assuming you ever come into contact with PHI, but you probably do. And so it's both a compliance tool for yourself, but then perhaps even more importantly, it gives you that expertise that you can assure your clients that you know what you're talking about, and it'll help you sell the service. What are the benefits of this program for your clients or for members of your organization? Well, it's really peace of mind around HIPAA compliance, especially in an environment of increased regulatory scrutiny. So clients can be confident that they have the documents they need to meet those requirements. If HHS goes in and audits a practice and they don't have HIPAA policies and they don't have HIPAA procedures, they're just dead in the water. They're not going to be found to be in compliance, and they are going to be fined. It provides skilled HIPAA training around for security professionals and for the workforce. So it gives those practices the expertise they need to look at their own compliance. It's not the same level of expertise that a highest level of HIPAA compliance figure would have, someone such as Mike Simmel, but it gives them it provides that designated security officer training and gives them the expertise they need to be sure that they're meeting their compliance obligations.
And it's required that they have a compliance officer
right
on site.
Yeah.
In addition to,
so practices and organizations have been fined by HHS strictly for not having the training, and you need to have that training documented. Our learning system is very robust, and so anyone who goes through that training, it generates documentation for them to keep for themselves, but we also keep a record of that in perpetuity. So if there ever was a question around your compliance, we can document that with HHS. So it gives you peace of mind on meeting those requirements as well. Again, we talked about the remediation. So when a risk analysis occurs, it's a pretty safe bet that they're going to find something that needs to be taken care of. HIPAA is relatively complex, and so it gives them an opportunity to mitigate those risks. And when it comes to fines from HHS, what we hear from the experts more than anything else is good faith efforts count for a lot. So HHS, if they conduct an audit and they find something wrong, but you have a compliance program, the likeliest outcome is they're going to tell you to fix that thing. Yeah. Where they're going to find people is when those people have been negligent and they haven't made any effort to meet their HIPAA obligations. So that's more peace of mind for the client. By combining these into a single delivery system, it's convenient. It also provides a lot of savings for the client. And then this is an important point, I think. We talk about this in terms of compliance, but there's a reason why this law exists. There's a reason why this is important. Patient information, that needs to be protected. And HIPAA was passed in an environment where things were mostly on paper. That's no longer the case. It's something like 70% plus of practices now have moved to EHR or in the process. And when you've got that digital technology and it's all networked together, the risks of a breach go up significantly. And, as someone who goes to the doctor, I want to know that that information is protected, not only for privacy, but the real concern here from a financial perspective is that someone steals that information. It's got my social security number in there. It's got my address in there. It's got all kinds of information they could use to steal my identity. And so if practices and business associates are collecting that sort of information, apart from the law, we really have a moral obligation to protect that information as well. What are the benefits of this program to your business or organization? Well, as we said, this is a great value add to offer to your clients. So not only can you go in and you're providing services. If you're an MSP, you're providing services to them already. But now you can go in and say, hey, I know that this HIPAA compliance environment is kind of intimidating. I can guide you through it. I can provide you products that have a great value to them. They're really very competitive in the market in terms of price, but also it gives them that peace of mind that they know they're compliant. And that is a huge value add for a lot of folks.
And in addition to that, again, it's not a bullet here, and I realize we need to modify this now. But I do think it's very important to note, particularly for those of you who provide remediation type services, that the benefit to your business, assuming that's your category, additionally, is that this is a great lead generator for your additional services. So if that risk analysis report pops up anything, and many of them do, pops up any kind of gap in their security, that's a spot where now you can provide service at your full rates into that client site with with the added recommendation from this HIPAASecure report. So I think that's a bullet that we probably need to pop in there as well.
Right, and we're probably going to have another session like this on an ongoing basis from time to time, just to make sure everyone's up to speed. So this is our 1.0 on this we're offering out to you. We'll definitely enhance it and continue to offer this sort of educational session to you. Of course, then there's also the revenue opportunities. When you have a client go through, you're providing these services and then they need the HIPAA training, for example, there's really nothing you need to do. It's almost mailbox money that you get for pushing them through that training. Our system now is fully automated on education. You can have your client just go to the education storefront and purchase the training that they need under your guidance, and then you get the money back for that, your share of the revenue, and we handle all of the customer support, the technical aspects. There's nothing you need to do around any of that. And to be honest, it's the same way with the HIPAASecure itself. You might be a little more involved there, especially if you're interested in providing remediation services. But this is really, in addition to the value add, an easy way to earn extra revenue for your business.
Absolutely. And the partners, around the training your own staff component, on the training side, for all of our training partners, we also provide them with a discount code to be able to train their staff internally, and that's a really, really deep discount. So in addition to the free certification that you get as part of your premium partnership, as a reseller, you also get a really incredible discount for your internal staff to be able to train all of them and get them certified. So that's a benefit, I think, to the businesses as well.
Right, because everyone needs to be compliant. So, it's worth it. To be honest, it's worth it just for that. But, of course, the point is to also offer it out to your clients. So we talked about this a little bit before, but how does ForMed HIPAASecure help if your client has more than 5 providers or doctors at multiple locations? And that's where that custom quote part of it kicks in. We're going to talk about the partner portal here in a little bit, but the questionnaire that they need to fill out, it's not very lengthy, is loaded into that partner portal, so you can go in and grab that. We'll give you more information about where to grab that when we talk about the partner portal. But you can grab that questionnaire, help your client go through it, and so it's not that difficult to generate that custom quote. Once you send that completed questionnaire to us, we pass that on and we can produce a quote for you usually within 48 hours on what will be required. And for those, we'll send a more detailed proposal around what will be provided with that service. So it's an extra step, but we've made it as simple as we possibly can.
Well, and what's nice about the larger custom quotes is that the revenue percentages back to you can be quite large. It is a 10% referral fee. So if you're talking about a large environment that needs HIPAA security, risk analysis reports for meaningful use, etc., that price tag can get pretty high.
Frankly, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars.
We just had one out last week that was into the 50,000.
Yeah, we've had one as high as, it was more than $100,000.
Yeah. So in other words, if you do happen to work with larger environments, obviously this is a great out-of-the-box program for 5 docs or less. But if you do happen to work with larger environments and you do want to be able to provide these services and do not currently have the ability to do so, this is a great way to add pretty significant revenue to your bottom line.
How do ForMed partners track sales and receive payments? I'm going to let Wendy take this one.
Okay, so up until now, essentially we had been doing this somewhat manually internally. We've been tracking sales through, we receive automated updates of all of the sales, but we were issuing reports out to each individual partner from those store portals on a monthly basis. That said, we found that to be relatively inefficient, not quite as scalable as we liked, and the partners really kind of like to keep on top of this stuff on a daily and weekly basis. And as we realized that, what we decided to do was to create an actual affiliate portal which will track your sales, and you can elect to receive payments by check, which is how we've been doing it to date, or this portal will allow you to set up a PayPal account. Those payments are still made quarterly, but you'll be able to see in your dashboard day to day how many raw clicks to your storefront, how many impressions of banners that you select and download and put in different places. You'll be able to take a look at and see any sales that were made today, any sales that were made this month, cumulative totals, commissions, all that good stuff. So that said, this is a very cool new tool. We'll be rolling this out on September 9th with a big announcement and a tutorial that we will both present live and also record and post into the area where we provide open access marketing. But this is going to be a really neat way for you to track your sales, both of the education and course sales as well as the HIPAASecure storefront sales.
And of course, we are recording this session today as we record all of our learning lunches. And so we're going to follow up and send you the slides and the recorded versions of this as well for your reference. How much ConformEd partners make in new revenues? So their earnings are going to vary depending on what niche you're in. But for the HIPAA-secure offerings themselves, you can offer your audience a 5% discount off of the retail price. So, you know, and this is our approach in general, we have retail sites, but we don't heavily promote them, and that's not really the model that we're interested in. We work with partners to offer these products, and so we always undercut ourselves on price through partners. We would much rather have you sell these products than sell them ourselves. So you can offer your clients a 5% discount on the HIPAA-secure products, and of course education is part of this as well. We recommend a 20% discount on those products.
Right, and that's a separate storefront. So we have a lot more margin or discount capability on the education, obviously, because that's in-house. The 5% discount on the retail pricing of services, because we do work with strategic partners in that area. We have a narrower margin capability on the service side, but it does still benefit the client significantly to be able to have access to that discount. And in addition to that discount, each one of the partners earns 10% per product or service referral from the HIPAA-secure store itself.
And you can see here on the screenshot of the HIPAA-secure store that link there where it says ForMed, the box next to the seal. That is the link through to the education store, and that takes people directly to the HIPAA education products as well. So 10% on HIPAA-secure, as the bullet there says, by just selling one of these smart bundles a week, you can earn significant revenues that, you know, over the course of a year, add a nice little bump to your revenue, and that's by selling almost nothing.
And that's not including the training, because the training you can earn even more. I mean,
yeah.
If this is just selling a single smart bundle each week to those clients,
if you do nothing else,
if that's all you did,
and that's not including any of the remediation opportunities.
Correct, exactly.
So I mean, this is sort of like if you did almost nothing,
right,
you still would make some significant money by doing it.
Right, and you know, those numbers add up very quickly if you are also selling HIPAA training into these client sites, which most people do. Very few people are going to be selling, you know, just the service side. You know, most people also are going to put that together with the training sales.
Right, and you know, because everyone needs the training, you know, those numbers can add up pretty quickly. And so when you look at one of these proposals, if it's a custom proposal, for example, you know, once you add in significant amounts of training, those numbers really start to rise quickly.
Right, multiply.
Does ForMed help with marketing? You bet we do, and we're always working to improve our support for marketing. So ForMed invites partners to leverage the content that we've created using a co-branded HIT resource microsite, which we mentioned earlier, called the Pro Page.
And the Pro Page is great because, well, for a few reasons. One is everybody's always looking for content for their websites, and nobody ever has time to develop it. We know because we spend a lot of time developing content. And this is a great way, literally with no effort at all. It takes 10 minutes to set it up and launch it, and then you've got a URL you can link to your website. This page will allow you to provide wonderful information about meaningful use and HIPAA and HAT. You get to select which pages from our website you think are most relevant to your audience, and it's a wizard. You can go in anytime and change it. If you change your mind and want to, mix and match the pages a different way, you're welcome to do that. In the next couple of weeks, we're adding in a capability into the portal allowing you to add your own pages to this resource site, so that you can, if you've got some content that you've written that you'd like to add in, you are welcome to upload that and add that to any one of the columns that you see there. Links, any page you land on internally, you can link out to pages on your website. The customized, co-branded, or rather branded logo that we will put at the top of this tool will jump back to your home page, and so you can pass information back and forth and go back and forth between your primary home page and this page as it relates to your information for your clients. It also has our live chat service. We have live chat operators here available to answer questions about HIPAA and meaningful use, about the courses that we sell, pretty much anything relating to any topic that you see on this page. And so that live chat button can be loaded up, and that is an optional item. You can load it or not load it, but it's a great service. Clients love it. We get tons of live chats every day. And additionally, you can plug in a link to your training pages and to your storefronts from that header as well. So that's a great, it's a great marketing tool, very, very cool spot for you to send people, and it takes very little effort on your part to get it set up.
People are consistently amazed by how easy it is to set it up.
Right.
I think that it just blows people away.
Yeah, a couple times I've had partners say, oh, I'll get to that, and in the 5 minutes that I've had them on the phone, I show them how it's set up, and they're blown away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really easy. So that's a cool tool. Additionally, we also have a SharePoint website. For those of you who don't know what that means, that just means it's a spot on the web where we load up folders with marketing materials, flyers, ads, banners, weekly news digest, blah, 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 all branded to the format products and services that you're providing, and allowing, and with spots where you can put in your own logos, put in your own contact information, whatever it is that you want to add to that. We have postcards and e-blasts and all kinds of stuff. So that's available to you as well.
And you can also grab that questionnaire I discussed for those custom quotes in the documentation folder there. We're going to, here over the next couple of days, we're going to create a HIPAA-secure folder where it'll all be consolidated there, and it'll be really easy to find for you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about some other marketing strategies to promote Format HIPAA services. We've talked a little bit about our email blast. We're working with our partners now to make this as simple as possible. This week we launched a new program where we're providing to partners ready-made email blasts with their branding, with their links that they can just take and push out to their clients. It's about the easiest promotional tool you can possibly imagine.
Absolutely. HTML emails, pre-designed. We had a couple of folks let us know that the email tools they use weren't HTML compliant, although Outlook is, most tools are. But that said, depending upon the size of your client list, if you're using a tool and need it to be customized in a different format, we can do that as well. We also are happy to help our clients by co-branding and presenting live webinar events in some cases. We recommend doing blog postings and about important column articles that you find through your pro page or on Format Approved, and then cross-linking folks from that out to your stores. Reminding people of the various deadlines like you see on the example on that slide. Obviously, any deadlines that you can draw people's attention to will help them realize that they need to get this stuff done quickly. Banner ads, we have in the new affiliate portal, you'll be able to download banner ads that will track directly to your portal for course sales opportunities. We have lots of different designs, lots of different sizes. So if you've got spots where you place banner ads, that's a great way to promote your courses. Conference promotions, in the Format Pro Network, we try to keep a link to and some lists of various conferences in the industry that might be of use to you in your service area, where you can promote courses and services out to the medical community. And then we also recommend, if you are interested in, on the publishing side, creating some articles or extrapolating from our content to create articles for local industry newsletters and things like that. That's a great way to promote as well.
So what is your point of contact at ForMed? Well, for existing partners, you should have a liaison that you should work with. When you sign a contract, you are probably working with the liaison already, but you will be assigned a liaison, and that person is there to guide you through all the aspects of this. They can answer questions about HIPAA. They can answer questions about the program. And all of us here at ForMed are happy to answer questions. You can go onto our website and hop onto that live chat button. Give that a whirl if you want. You can call us. You can email us. We're all happy to answer questions about either HIPAA itself or the programs that we're discussing today.
Absolutely. And just so that you know, and this slide mentions it, but we have an 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. In-office hours. So if you hit that live chat button, and that's Central Time because we are in Chicago, but if you hit that live chat button outside of those hours, it will create an email and send it to us, and about 10 people will get that email, and believe me, you'll get an answer back.
Yeah.
One thing I have noticed, particularly in Brian's group, is that people answer really quickly,
yeah.
very readily to any questions you have via that live chat.
We're pretty plugged in, I have to say. You know,
yeah.
Someone will answer your question almost invariably within about half an hour.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
So we said we were going to save plenty of time for questions. Of course, once we start talking about HIPAASecure, we get so filled with HIPAA passion that we tend to talk a little bit. But we do have some time, and we've already gotten a number of questions. For folks who haven't asked questions yet, you can ask them now, and then also you can write us independently and ask. But
let's take a look at some.
Yeah, let's pull the question bar up here a little bigger.
Okay, good. Got some good ones. First question is, can you embed the storefront in an iframe? Well, curiously, that's an interesting question. It actually is in an iframe. How we do the co-branding is that we frame it in an iframe, and we throw your logo, etc. at top. So that said, the answer to that question is yes. If you wanted to have the center part of the store and wrap it with a different iframe, I suppose that could be done. I know we do have that capability available. So yes, the answer to that is, if you wanted to iframe it with a different wrap than we provide, yes, you could put that store content in the center of a different iframe.
And again, we're happy to work with you to customize the storefront. So that's just something you would work with your liaison to customize. Next question, is the network security risk analysis an internal or external scan of the network? There's internal and external testing involved. So there's an uninformed external test, then there's an informed internal test that's involved with that. So both are included in that.
And as far as individual detailed questions about the actual services that our contractors provide, we're happy to take emails on some of these questions that are more detailed about the actual services themselves. So feel free to shoot us an email or shoot your liaison an email with specific questions about the service offerings from our strategic partners.
Yes, because if you get into great detail, that would be a question that it would be important to take up with one of those technicians who has greater insight and knowledge of that.
Right.
Here's the next question. Some of your offerings duplicate what we offer. Can we modify the site to include both or not display yours? It is possible to customize the store and not include some of the products. There's a charge involved with that.
Right. There's because we have to build custom stores for you, that there are some fees associated with building a store that eliminates entire categories. But that said, I noticed there's a question later on in the list that talks about, can we not show people your pricing and mark it up? Yes, that's absolutely doable. There are some parameters around how the payment structure works. So in other words, you can pay for the service yourself and then charge your clients whatever you like. Certainly we have people do that. That said, in that case, you would be placing the order through the storefront yourself and processing payment through the storefront yourself, and then charging your clients whatever margin or markup was involved there. So that's kind of how that works.
And we found people use this in different ways. Some people basically handle everything for the client and don't ever have the client even see the storefront. Right. Some people prefer to have folks go through the storefront. In most cases, it's probably best to have them go through the storefront because it has additional information there, but it's really up to you how you manage those relationships. Are there a single purchase or subscription to the documents? If not, to what extent do the buyers have?
Oh, he's okay. So he's asking on the documentation bundle.
Yes.
Do folks receive updates when the updates come out? That is a one-year license. So for that year's time, if we do make a modification or change to any item within that documentation bundle, that buyer, that client will receive notice, and they will be able to come in and pull down the updated document.
And as an example, for instance, when the HIPAA Omnibus Final Rule was issued in January, we had our content around that updated within a couple of weeks. So hopefully now I think that there won't be large updates to HIPAA for the foreseeable future because the Omnibus Final Rule, maybe I'm putting too much stock in final, but it does seem that they've nailed down now all of the aspects of HIPAA. But again, when there are these regulatory changes, we move very quickly to implement the changes and let you know that they've been made. There's a question about the revenues that people can earn. I think we addressed that earlier in the session.
They might be asked, because they're asking about bundles, they might be asking about the training bundles, so we can address that quickly. A lot of people buy HIPAA training in bundles. As far as those bundles go, it is different than the individual course revenues for some of the existing partners, and how that works is that you would receive 30% of whatever the sale price is that you've outlined for that bundle. Most people are using a 20% discount for those bundles to their clients, to their end users. So after that 20% is adjusted to the retail price, you earn 30% of that sale price for bundled course sales. So I assume that's the question, but it's a bigger margin than on the services side, but it is and different from the services side, but I assume that that was about the training.
Here's a question about the September 23rd deadline. What happens to non-compliant healthcare organizations after September 23rd? Well, I believe the plan is that they're going to be loaded into rockets and launched to the moon.
Yeah, I think that's it.
The rest of it is, do we just keep selling like there is no tomorrow, which there isn't? Well, what happens is, if it's October 1st, you still need to be compliant. So
Right.
It's not as if you miss the date and then you just give up and take your toys and go home. And the other thing is, HIPAA compliance is an ongoing exercise. So, when September 23rd passes, we expect that there's going to be months of people belatedly realizing that they're not in compliance and trying to catch up. Remember that providers have needed to be HIPAA compliant since '96. I mean, the various aspects of it, the privacy rule, the security rule, the regulations around those have phased in over time. And then the High-Tech Act of 2009 also made some significant changes to HIPAA. But, there's people who have done nothing around HIPAA over all of this time. And we expect that people are going to continue to come in and finally start to meet their compliance needs. So when September 23rd comes, that's just all the more reason to keep pushing people to meet their compliance obligations.
Well, and the other piece is what you mentioned before, which is that those good faith efforts
Yes.
will help. So one of the things that you can say is if you end up in a practice on September 24th and they're not compliant, your message should be that the audit folks will recognize good faith efforts to meet those requirements even if they are delayed.
And here we have a question about CHSP. I think this is something that comes up often, so I'm glad that this was asked. The question is, if our company provides managed IT services for the client and we have CHSP, can they use the CHSP? Let me make sure I understand the question actually. Let's talk about it from the client perspective, and then we'll talk about it from the partner perspective, just to make sure we're covering both. So for the client, do they need to take CHSP? The question is basically, should they take one CHSP and everybody else take Workforce? And the answer is, it depends. We can certainly say that every practice, every location needs to have at least one CHSP, and that's a HIPAA requirement. And that's more in-depth training. The Workforce, the idea behind Workforce is everybody who is a part of HIPAA who comes into contact with PHI, they need HIPAA training. The workforce training is designed to be short, very affordable, and pragmatic. The CHSP training goes into more depth. It talks a little bit more about the regulatory complexity. It's more technical. It talks about the IT requirements. It goes into much more detail about what the security rule actually requires. So everybody at every location, there needs to be at least one, but many organizations will need more than one CHSP. And it really comes down to what is the person's role. If I were a medical practice manager, I would want anyone who has significant management responsibilities to have that CHSP training so that they really understand HIPAA. And then everyone else should have the workforce. So it really comes down to what role is the person playing in that organization. And then let's talk for a moment about people who are MSPs themselves, because this question comes up too. For MSPs themselves, it's really, in most cases, it's going to be more CHSP. And the reason why is if you have technicians going out into the field, they really need a depth of understanding about what HIPAA requires, what you need to do when you're, for instance, transporting hardware that contains PHI, how to get rid of that hardware. That stuff is not covered in workforce because workforce, you know, as I was saying, it's really pragmatic. It's for everyone from someone manning the front desk to a nurse to whoever. Well, it's not going to get into how to destroy hard drives.
No, correct. It's not technical, and it really is designed to kind of help people identify what is a breach.
Yes.
You know, how to avoid creating a breach, that kind of thing. So
how to have a password that just isn't, you know, a password in name only. Just really simple stuff on the workforce side. On the CHSP side, you know, that's where you get into the really more technical information. So. And again, if you're a partner, you can get that CHSP training for a real bargain at wholesale pricing. So you really should train up your staff.
And one of the questions, and because it keeps being asked over and over, I want to make sure we're very, very clear. Partners are making 10% when they are providing referrals through the HIPAASecure program, and the percentages for training are closer to 30%,
right,
depending upon when you joined the program. But right, they're basically right around that 30% mark. So hopefully that's a clear enough answer. If you need a more detailed answer, it would be best, if you're not a partner yet, to read the proposal carefully, the proposal that you received, and to speak to the partner liaison. Both of those will help you answer that question. But on the services side, when we're providing services through the HIPAASecure program, it's a 10% referral fee for the final price of that service. And in the case of the training, it's a whopping 30% or in that ballpark. So that's your margin answer. The question, I actually have several people asking the same question about the Pro page, and as far as the Pro page goes, it is not an iframe, so you are welcome to iframe it. Yes, you can load it right into your site. It's just a URL, and so if you want to put it right in your website as a page of your website, you can iframe it with all of the branding from your current homepage or your current page, and that way you don't have to go back and forth. It'll be just right inside your current format. What else have we got there?
Is it possible to see what is in the documentation template bundle? Well,
the details. You can see the details.
Yeah, you can see the details of what's in there. Obviously, people need to purchase the documentation in order to have it.
Right. Have access.
That's the whole point.
Right.
But in terms of what is included in the documentation, you can. We discussed it here, but you can click on that product and get more information about it. If you want more information than that, your best bet is to talk to your liaison or call or chat with someone here at Format Approved, and we can go over in more detail what's included in there. The policies template, for instance, is very long. There's all sorts of material in there. I believe it's more than 100 pages long, so there's a lot of stuff in there.
Right. What else have we got?
Okay, this is an interesting question. I like this one. Do you have any plans for additional modules for state-required training? For instance, Minnesota has other specific training requirements. In the CHSP course, it does discuss, there's a module that discusses regulatory complexity. And that gets into the fact that states are free. No state can set standards that are weaker than HIPAA, but states are free to set standards that are stricter than HIPAA. So one of the examples that comes up a lot is that if you have a breach of more than 500 patient records, federal law requires you to report that to HHS no later than 60 days after you should be aware of it. There's that kind of legalistic language around it. California, you have 5 days. So the standards can vary somewhat by state. That module goes into some detail about it. It doesn't list every state's requirements. Most of the states, the differences are relatively small. We can direct you to a site that HHS maintains that does specify what those requirements are.
I actually think he links out to that.
Yes,
site
indeed. In the CHSP, if you go
Yeah.
in there, I believe there's a link out to that.
Yeah.
If not, we'll provide that to you. So most of the states, the differences are not great. In some of them, there's significant differences, and that's an important aspect. And there's another example of how CHSP is different from Workforce. Workforce doesn't discuss any of that. In addition to the varying state requirements, that module also talks about how things like Sarbanes-Oxley, for instance, are something else to consider as part of your overall compliance efforts.
Somebody's asking, and actually this question is repeated in a couple different ways, if you have multi-locations, should there be at least one CHSP at each physical location? Yes. Regardless of staff size at the location, yes. So you have to have at least one identified security compliance officer, and that is an important point. And so let's say at a site location you have, 50 staff people. In that environment, at the very least, they need to have one security compliance officer. Then the workforce training might be applicable to the rest of the staff. But again, that's one of those questions that it really depends slightly on the roles that are, or somewhat on the roles that are identified in that practice. So it's something that you could, address with your liaison or with one of our HIPAA consulting professionals.
And the whole point here is that that designated security officer is supposed to be overseeing compliance. Right. So that's not something you want to outsource. That's not something you want to sort of, try to just get by it with a minimal effort.
Well, but that said, a lot of practices don't have the bandwidth or the desire to provide the compliance, the level of compliance oversight that you're talking about there. So in those cases, I noticed somebody asked, hey, can I just take the CHSP and then, they all take workforce and I'll be their compliance officer? Well, that's a yes and no answer, actually. The answer is yes. Probably in many cases that is what they're going to want to do. Mm-hmm. They're going to want you to be their compliance officer. So yes, you want to say, regardless of the fact that somebody there does need to take that full course, regardless of that fact, even if that's true and they do need to take that full course, you ultimately will be the person that stays up to speed on the various details, and they can call if they need help, and you're the person that they're going to rely on.
Right. So to demonstrate compliance, they need that CHSP training. But in terms of actually running the compliance program, for an MSP, you're going to be the person that, ideally, you're going to provide that sort of oversight for them as part of making sure their network's up to stuff, but also just overseeing their entire compliance effort. And something to always remember about HIPAA is sometimes people think of it as a technical thing, and some practices have decided that because they have EHR, they're automatically compliant. But most of the HIPAA requirements, more than half of those, are administrative requirements. So it's really a matter of making sure that you have the proper policies and procedures and that they're followed.
And one other person who looks like maybe they popped off because we're almost done, asked what type of course should they take if they're not particularly technical. It really depends on what you're planning to do with the information. If you are planning to be a HIPAASecure reseller, you really need to take that CHSP course. You need to be up to speed. You do not need to be a technician in order to take that course, but it is helpful to have all of that level of detail to be able to speak intelligently on the topic and to have enough familiarity with HIPAA in order to be able to sell these products and services.
And someone has asked, where in the law does it require HIPAA training? Where does it require a designated security officer? We can direct you to that in an email after this session. But be aware that part of the reason why we pulled these materials together for you and why this training is important is that when it comes to looking at HIPAA compliance, you are talking about literally hundreds upon hundreds of pages of documentation. And here's a funny example. the simplification
Yeah, that is a thing.
publication from HHS on this runs to hundreds of pages. That's the simple version. I believe that the HIPAA Omnibus Final Rule was like it was more than 500 pages.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're happy to provide you with that reference, but be aware that it is a lot to wade through.
Yeah, but I think we can give them a direct.
Yeah, we'll give you a direct link to where it is.
But that's a great place to get talking points, and so several of you are asking terrific questions because these are the questions that, you know, when you have the answers, you can deliver the hows and whys to the clients. Why do they need those? What,
right.
You know, and we are actually kind of working on a document that you will find in the SharePoint shortly that does that. That does kind of a question and answer thing that's being put together right now. So.
Right. So, and we do offer to our partners some. We get this question from time to time. We will give you the legal codes that are involved where if you need to take one of your clients and show them in the law where it says they have to do this, because some people are kind of in denial, you can do that.
Well, I think that's it for us for today. I think we got through most of the questions.
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. But if you do have additional questions, please call the 800 number, hit the live check, call your liaison, let us know. If you're not yet signed up as a reseller and this sounds interesting to you, we also can follow up and send you the presentation that is designed specifically or wraps specifically around our training reseller program as well. So, you know, I think this is probably a good start session for us, but we really appreciate you guys joining us today, and we will look forward to your additional questions and are happy to help you with any aspect of this sales program that you have additional questions about.
And thank you all of us for joining us today.